If I was a criminal, I would call for and support an organization like Moms Demand Action. Why? Because I would want a gun-free, stress-free working environment. I use Virtual Shield VPN every single day on my phone and my laptop because it flat out works. I hide my identity, my activity, and my location, and you can try it out for 30 days for free using my link in the description. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, I believe the people over at Moms Demand Action want to make the world a better place. I think they truly believe that if they can get politicians to make more laws, lives will be saved. But let's think about this for a second. What they're actually demanding is that government that's been responsible for murdering more than 250 million of its own people in the last 100 years, excluding wars, that kind of government should initiate gun violence on the rest of us as they pass their laws. Because that's what a law is. It's an arbitrary edict that criminalizes individuals for having done nothing wrong. Maybe you own one of those scary black AR-15 rifles. Well, Moms Demand Action wants you criminalized just because somebody else used that tool to commit a crime. And don't forget, these laws are all backed by threats of violence and force. In the end, all laws are enforced by the barrel of a government gun. So what ends up happening is that the gun violence that they say exists is increased because now they want government-sanctioned gun violence to pass so that they can get their way. This makes everybody less safe. More lives are lost, more money is wasted, and crimes increase. Therefore, the action they're demanding is, ironically, the very action they claim to be against. They're demanding government gun violence to befall you because they're scared. Let's take a look at their campaign ad from their Facebook page and assess it logically, not emotionally.
On January 3rd, 2019, a gun sense majority was sworn into the U.S. House of Representatives.
And in Washington, my door is wide open to you. I will expect to see you. I will expect to hear from you because I need you to help me shift what's happening in Washington.
First of all, gun sense in America is a euphemistic phrase that really equates to the version of gun violence that they'll actually accept. That government gun violence turned on peaceful gun-owning Americans. And what's happening in Washington is that politicians are trying to increase their power over the masses. And Moms Demand Action is unwittingly contributing to that power grab. I mean, think about it. They're actually begging the most vile humans on the planet, that's politicians, to enact laws against the rest of us.
For the first time in 20 years, our representatives passed major gun safety legislation, a bill to require background checks on all gun sales.
Background checks or infringement checks. And that's what Moms Demand Action wants to do. They want to infringe and encroach on your life. They want the force and violence of government involved in every otherwise free and voluntary transaction between two consenting parties, one who wants to buy a gun and one who wants to make money. And every law that they could ever pass will be completely ignored by every criminal who aims to harm people with a gun while criminalizing people who aren't criminals. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Moms Demand Action is actually empowering criminals.
But we didn't stop there. We worked with the House to pass a total of 4 meaningful bills to reduce gun violence.
Passing 4 meaningful bills will actually call for more and cause more gun violence. Moms Demand Action is the kind of group Hitler would have loved and supported.
And when the Senate refused to act, we made it clear that we will hold them accountable for their inaction in 2020. Outside of Washington, we continue to stand up to the gun lobby and win.
Here's another smokescreen. They set up this false protagonist-antagonist scenario. It's all these moms versus the gun lobby versus the NRA or gun manufacturers. They're the bad guys. Most gun owners aren't part of a gun organization. They just want to be left alone. But the insidious inherent nature in groups like Moms Demand Action is that they don't want to leave you alone. They want to meddle in your life. They want to forcefully insert themselves into your life against your will and without your consent.
Because of the never-ending commitment of Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action volunteers and survivors of gun violence, gun sense champions fought for common sense gun safety reform in states across the country this year.
Common sense gun safety reform.
Common sense gun safety reform is really gun criminality. They should really be called Moms Demand Government Gun Violence, because that's the reality of what they're bringing to pass.
We fought off bad bills too. This is our 5th year in a row of beating NRA priority bills more than 90% of the time.
Every freedom-loving American who's clued into what's going on is also against the NRA. Why? Because unlike the gun owners of America, the NRA has compromised on the Second Amendment by bringing into being the NICS instant background check system. By Wayne LaPierre's own admission, it wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the NRA.
The best kept secret is that the National Instant Check System wouldn't exist at all if it weren't for the NRA. It's true. Back in the 90s, President Clinton forced passage of a mandatory waiting period on every handgun purchased in America. Not a background check, a wait. But NRA said as soon as the technology was available, their wait had to be replaced by an instant background check done by the dealer at the point of sale. NRA supported it, NRA got the votes, and NRA got it passed.
This alone makes the NRA a gross violator of the very Second Amendment they claim to defend. Freedom lovers view the NRA and Moms Demand Action on an equal plane with regard to shall not be infringed.
Our message is clearly resonating. Whether they're on the debate stage or on the campaign trail, presidential candidates are talking about the gun violence crisis our country faces every single day.
Like we've said before, there really is no crisis. If you take out the 63% who use firearms to end their own life each year through suicide, you're only talking about 0.007% of the population dying through the criminal use of a firearm. On the other hand, firearms are used 500,000 to 3 million times a year to save innocent lives. This means if Moms Demand Action gets their way, way more lives will be lost. This makes Moms Demand Action an organization that facilitates unimaginable evil.
In El Paso, in Dayton, in Brooklyn, in Chicago, and Baltimore. These communities and countless others across the country are crying out for a solution.
Well, the solution is simple, John. Leave people alone. Leave them alone so they can arm themselves against violent aggressors. How about this? Remove every last gun-free, criminal empowerment, victim creation, fish in a barrel zone. These zones are the leading cause of death for young and old alike with regard to firearms. Another simple solution is to trash every law that violates the Second Amendment and watch crime drop as criminals think twice before they engage in their criminal activity.
Our gun violence crisis is not only about the lives stolen in mass shootings. It's also the tragedies we face in communities across the country when 100 Americans die and hundreds more are wounded by gun violence in an average day.
Here's a question for you. Of that number, why don't they tell you that 63% comes from suicide? And how many of those deaths are actually justified? How many of those people needed to be ushered into the great beyond because of their criminal activity? And how high would that number actually be if people didn't protect themselves with a firearm? According to estimates, if 1 million innocent lives are saved every year through the defensive use of a firearm, and guys, that number is no doubt way higher, then that 100 people would turn into over 2,800 deaths per day because people would be legislated out of their right to protect themselves and their families with a gun. So Moms Demand Action is actually a criminal organization that wants you defenseless. And they'll make you defenseless by force.
We've made the commitment to honor those who have been taken from us, not just with thoughts and prayers, but with action.
Then why don't you take the action of arming yourselves and empowering yourselves instead of marching around in cities all over America urging lawmakers to violently take the guns of everybody else away?
When you're at risk of feeling hopeless or even cynical, remember this. We have become a force too powerful to be stopped.
This November, Americans went to the polls to vote for gun-sense candidates, including in the NRA's home state of Virginia, where gun safety was the #1 issue for voters. And all signs are pointing to gun safety being a top issue for voters everywhere in 2020. Together, we can make history. We can elect gun-sense candidates up and down the ballot, leaders who will put the lives of Americans ahead of the NRA's extreme agenda. We have a tough fight ahead of us, but we have proven time and time again that we will not give up the fight to end gun violence.
You didn't get this far by giving up. You didn't get this far by saying you can't. You didn't get this far by just being mediocre. You moms demand action, and that's what we demand.
Let's make history together.
Yep, they're making history all right. They'll go down as one of those groups that empowered criminals and helped to create more victims than you can possibly imagine. Guys, please like and share this video with everybody you know everywhere you can on social media. And if you got something out of this video, here are 2 more videos that you might like. Take a couple minutes and check them out. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comments section below, and I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.